hearts race, and the crowd goes wild. All across the nation, the Dirt Track Warriors duke it out for what matters the most: the trophy and the glory. This is Gas and Glory, presented by R&R Enterprises.
And welcome back to Gas and Glory, the show where we talk about what matters the most: the trophy and the glory. It's Kyle Looters and Neil Quick coming to you direct from the studios here at R&R Enterprises. Neil, another week. It's getting colder, baseball's getting better, and the racing season, well, it's winding down. I don't know how to feel about this.
The weather's getting colder, but the baseball season's definitely getting a lot hotter.
It's getting hotter?
Yeah, it's getting hotter.
Talk about the Royals, maybe.
Well, the Royals are awesome, man.
You think an I-70 series like I am?
Yeah, that would be awesome, actually. See Kansas City take on St. Louis in the World Series.
That would be so incredibly awesome. But speaking of incredibly awesome, the racing this past weekend, fast and furious. We're going to start, though, with the World of Outlaws STP Sprint Car Series. Our boy, Donnie Schatz, win number 25. That's right, 25, the quarter-century mark in one season. Neil, when you think about this, the World of Outlaws are not going to run 100 races this year. They're going to run about 90 or so.
Right.
He's won over a quarter of the races.
That is absolutely amazing. And, I mean, this is one of those things that you start talking about, the idea of Donnie Schatz and the legend that he's starting to build on himself. I mean, everybody's got to look at this and start to think that Donnie is obviously just as starting to become a legendary just as much as Sammy and Jack and Steve. I mean, this is impressive.
This is extremely impressive, and we have to preface this by saying this. The World of Outlaws STP Sprint Car Series was in action at Rolling Wheels Raceway Park for the Budweiser Salute to the King Outlaw Showdown this past weekend as a part of Napa Super Dirt Week. They were up in New York.
Isn't that one of the old Kyle Looters mowing grass or painting fences or hanging banners places?
You know, there's stories quite all over the country anyways. But no, they were up at the biggest track that the Outlaws run on, 5/8 of a mile,
yep,
which is huge. It's your kind of place since you like the big, flat, boring tracks. So
really?
Well, you said you wanted to see the Outlaws on the Moody Mile.
That would be awesome. I'd like to see that. I don't think it's boring, though. I mean, big tracks are boring is what you're trying to tell me?
For the most part, they get so locked down that they don't really race.
Okay. Yeah, well, this is definitely something we're going to debate further here.
And we'll have to do that here in just a little bit. But, folks, it was a great race for Schatz as he won it in lap traffic after passing the leader, Brad Sweet. Bumper Cars' David Gravel was second, with Darren Pittman finishing third. Did you note the new nickname?
What?
Bumper Cars' David Gravel.
Bumper Cars' David Gravel.
Bumper Cars.
Is that one you came up with?
I've been working on it.
Wow.
What were you going to say?
Well, I was just thinking about this. I know Schatz is at 25, and I mean, what do we got left? 4 races?
4 race nights, yes. We've got Fremont this coming weekend, Port Royal next weekend, and then they go down to Charlotte for the World Finals. They have 1 qualifying night, and then Friday and Saturday are 2 more A features. So, yes, 4.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Schatz could put it together. I mean, he can get close to that 30 number that you were doing.
You know, I'm going to be very disappointed if he wins out the rest of the season and he gets to 29 and he's 1 shy of 30.
That's still awesome.
That's still
25 is awesome.
That's still awesome, but I'm going to lose a taco on that.
Yeah, you are.
I am going to lose a taco on that.
Yeah, but I can't have tacos anymore.
More for me. We move on. Over at Eldora, it was the UNOH Sprintacular, and boy, was it exciting, Neil. Slide jobs galore, and furious racing was the name of the game. In the UNOH All-Star Circuit of Champions feature, it was a battle for the ages between Rico Abreu and Dale Blaney. The move that Rico put on Dale, holy mackerel.
Rico has been so impressive. I mean, anything that he has gotten into this year to race, whether it's a midget, sprint car, non-wing sprint car, or even wing sprint car. I mean, just watching him come through the field at Eldora there, and you got to think about this. He's chasing Dale Blaney at Eldora.
Oh, yeah.
And it makes him look like actually he's going slow.
He actually did. When I was watching it from the booth, it was poetry in motion. It was almost like for that moment they slowed down just a little bit, and you just saw him skate on through the middle of the track, slide up underneath him, go up to the top, hook the cushion, and continue on down. He made it look like nothing.
Coming off a 2, I think we were talking about this earlier yesterday. It looked like he just had an extra, 125 horsepower. It was gone.
He hit the afterburners. When he drifted up into turn 2 at Eldora, that right rear hooked the cushion. It looked like he hit the afterburner.
Yeah,
he shot around everybody.
He was reeling them in and picking them off. And the other thing that's impressive is how smart and how calm he keeps in a situation like that. I mean, Rico's really got starting to put it all together as a race car driver.
He absolutely is. And oh, by the way, that was his second straight victory on the weekend as he won at Lincoln Speedway in Illinois the night before. Now, all was not lost for Blaney as he claimed his 5th All-Star title on the strength of 16 All-Star wins. Yowza.
Just a few.
Yowza.
Yeah, that's domination, too.
That's absolute domination. And now Dale Blaney, the all-time career leader in All-Star Championships with 5. With the K&L Ready Mix NRA Sprint Invaders, it was the Hurricane, Randy Hannigan and Butch Schroeder going at it with Hannigan claiming the victory, another exciting feature. And then finally, in the Buckeye Machine Boss Sprint Cars, Thomas Mesereau took the checkers with 3 laps to go. Mike Miller claimed the title by a razor-thin margin. I think when we started the feature that night at Eldora, the point differential between first and second was only 6 points. So it came down to the last lap between Mike Miller and Dustin Smith, and it was a whale of a race there. And all around, the track slicked off and produced some amazing racing, some of the best features I've ever seen at Eldora.
Yeah, it was. The non-wing race was just as good as both wing races, and impressive. I mean, the Sprintacular turned out to be a great event for all. I mean, it was a neat way to end the season for Eldora.
You know, during that non-wing feature, I'm pretty sure, being on the mic, even though we were trading off lap by lap, I was either going to have a heart attack or an aneurysm.
I was listening to that. You guys were pretty well on the chip.
We were really on the chip. In fact, so much so that a lot of people didn't believe it was our voices. They were that high.
I'm telling you. I mean, I had to double check that. You guys did a good job, though.
Well, thank you. The Eldora, that was Eldora this weekend. And over in NASCAR, are you ready for this? We need the little ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. What's Michael Buffer say? Is it going?
Let's get ready to rumble.
There you go. There you go.
Get out the boxing gloves, boys. Kevin Harvick, first win in almost 6 months, and Kyle Larson finished 6th in the Bank of America 500 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. But, Neil, that is not the real story here, my friend. Here we go. Denny Hamlin and Matt Kenseth both seem to take issue with Brad Keselowski. Hamlin had some choice language. He had choice language. It wasn't just a few words. It was choice language in general to describe Brad, while Matt Kenseth just went after him. I mean, literally.
I think everybody...
Right past the camera guy.
Everybody saw footage of this, and everybody's focused in on Denny and Brad, and Denny getting hauled off to the hauler, and the cameraman follows Brad to the hauler, and Brad's walking down, and this cameraman looked like he was filming a Cops episode as Kenseth comes down there, run, headlock, and all. I mean, just takes on Keselowski. Pretty wild.
It was wild. My goodness gracious, that looked great. And then...
do you think it's over?
Oh, no. Now, nothing will happen at Talladega. Everybody's too frightened at Talladega. But come Martinsville, now, that's where you want to watch. That's where you want to watch, buddy.
It's going to be interesting.
It's going to be awesome.
It's going to look like one of our street stock races on iRacing.
Yes, it will. Now, here's the other funny thing, too. Kez also bumped into Tony Stewart by accident when he was trying to get a hold of Hamlin or Kenseth. And so Tony, being the good guy that he is, tat for tat.
Yeah, he just rearranged Brad's front end.
He dropped it into reverse and rammed the number 2 forward in the nose. That was awesome.
Yeah, actually, after the checkers flew on this one, we got the fans got an added bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte Demolition Derby.
Absolutely, and all of this is heading into Talladega.
I don't know if we want to carry over there.
A lot of guys going into Talladega in a must-win situation. A few guys by the names of Dale Earnhardt Jr.
And I'm sure
Jimmy
NASCAR's
Johnson.
loving all this, right?
Oh, they've got to.
They got to.
This is awesome. This is what we get in dirt racing like every week. They get it, once a millennia.
Hashtag Dramadega.
There you go. Hey, I like it. Let's make some shirts. Do we know some people that do that?
Well, yeah, sort of.
Okay, we'll work on that.
Yeah.
Exciting racing all week long during Super Dirt Week at the Moody Mile and other venues up in the state of New York. In the Salt City 78 for the tracks of Silver Crown cars, it was Cody Swanson. Now listen to this, Neil. We talk about Donnie Schatz dominating the World of Outlaws season. Cody picked up his 5th win in 10 Silver Crown races this year. Won the championship, breaking Tony Stewart Racing's stranglehold on that title. How impressive was Cody Swanson this year?
That looks like a stat I'd put up, like 50% win ratio.
Uh-huh.
That looks like me.
All told, though, incredibly good mark for that kid and that team this year. That team going into this year had never won a Silver Crown race.
No, it's very good to see, and I think it's kind of the word for 2014 as we talk about it, as we talk about Dale Blaney and shots and that. I mean, there's some total domination coming into play, and this has got to be right up there on top of it, being winning 50% of the Silver Crown races.
You're absolutely right there. And then on Sunday, it was Stuart Friesen taking the win in the Syracuse 200. For the folks that don't necessarily understand Super Dirt Week, which there are several people out here in the Midwest that what happens up at Syracuse every October is, we don't really know. I didn't know until I went up and saw it. But the Syracuse 200s, the 200 lap, big block modified dirt race on the Moody Mile up there at the New York State Fairgrounds. And it's a pretty big deal, pretty prestigious. It's kind of like the Knoxville Nationals, a big block modified racing.
It's a tough race, man. It's you got these big burly, big block modifieds out there, and as you go through this type of race, I mean that track. Why do they call the Moody Mile? Because it tears up and it looks like it's got potholes the size of the state of New York. I mean these guys are bouncing through.
Potholes the size of Volkswagens.
Well, same thing. I mean, no, you got to see these things. The modifieds are so powerful up there on that mile, and as they get around there, it's really good racing. And it's a dirt race that definitely is one of those things that even the pit crew plays in factor in that deal.
Yeah, this is like one of the few dirt races where they actually have pit stops. And if you think a NASCAR pit road's dangerous, just go to the Syracuse race. just go to the. I remember standing on pit road, just these cars come whizzing by it almost like full speed on pit road.
Yeah, there's no pit speed.
It's like, goodness gracious, my golly.
Yeah.
But, 3rd win for Stuart Friesen in that race, so pretty cool. Congrats to him. Our friends over at Power Eye, Neil, they wrapped up their season as Brian Clausen is your winner at Jacksonville Speedway in Illinois, and he also clinched the 2014 Midget Championship. On the night before, it was another good friend of ours, Christopher Bell, picking up his 11th Midget win of the season at Lincoln Speedway. Power Eye is done-o for 2014.
Been a good season for them guys. Got to go to a lot of the venues that they've done in the past and some new ones. But, it's good to see the season wrapped up and Brian clinching championship over there.
Well, folks, that is a recap of what happened this past weekend in the racing world, and congratulations to all of the Team R&R drivers. We humbly congratulate you, and it's a pleasure doing business with you. Very glad to see your success. And, Neil, there's a few more issues that are coming up here in the racing world that I would like us to discuss. Probably the one I'm looking forward to getting your opinion on the most is the what we're hearing coming out of the state of Nebraska. We've had this fall brawl for the 360 sprint cars up at I-80 for the past 3 years. Mm-hmm. Recently announced, the fall brawl goes from 360s to 410s in 2015. Your thoughts?
It's been, and we've talked about this the last couple years, and especially this year as it just came up a couple weeks ago. We think this is a great thing for sprint car racing, and especially now where it is branching over and now being a 410 deal. Really an interesting situation, and I think this is kind of something that's starting to. You have your World of Outlaws series out there, which is your premier 410 series. Mm-hmm. You have All-Stars out there, a few other series. You also have your ASCS, which is 360 type series racing, which is their big deal. I'm seeing a lot of different things that are going on. I know we've been talking about the new series up there with Knoxville.
Yep.
We're seeing this I-80 deal switch to 410s.
Uh-huh. The Renegade series over in Ohio.
Renegade series in Ohio. I see that the 410 thing is where everybody's going. We've talked about this in the past. More expensive, of course, but the fans enjoy that type of racing better, more horsepower, bigger drivers that run those cars. You don't see Donnie Schatz run on 360. You don't see those type drivers. You don't see Pittman in those cars. But I think these series are starting to switch over to that 410 deal, saying, hey, we're putting up the money. Let's start trying to see who we can attract and grab. And you know what? I don't know what this holds in the future for World of Outlaws. I don't know if you'll see some of these guys. We've seen more in the past couple of years, guys go to true outlaw schedules where they're not a World of Outlaw guy going where they want in racing, and kind of like a Brady Bacon type or
Brian Brown is one.
Brian Brown
that really comes to mind. I mean, and I think that Brian Brown, when you talk about a true outlaw schedule, he'll go run where the races are regardless of where they're at. We've seen him go out west with the Outlaws early in the year because nothing's happening back here in the Midwest.
Yeah.
That was a bit expensive for him this year with tore up some race cars. But when he got back here in the Midwest, when our season finally started here, and I would say here in the Midwest, we really don't get going well until early mid-May.
I agree.
We have a few shows in late April, but, you know, if you want to use, for example, the Spring Outlaw Show at I-55, plan on rain.
Yeah.
Usually Mother Nature starts cooperating mid-May until about mid-September.
Right.
After that, it gets cold. It gets rain. I mean, right now I think we're living in Seattle, Neil. We haven't seen the sun in a good 4 days.
It's nothing but rain out there.
I mean, the other day I thought we were going to blow away, and we in a pretty big building.
Yeah. It definitely been stormy and rainy, and usually get a couple of days of that. But man, we're going on a week of that.
But what my point here is that you've got all these different areas that are having these races, and we're starting to see it now with the Winter Heat Series that's going to be happening in January down in Arizona. You've always had Florida in February. California, they get their big outlaw swing in March. So what does this all mean for the 410s? Well, honestly, folks, I think what you're seeing is
a 410 team can stay in the Midwest and be able to afford to pay the bills by racing around the Midwest and get some of those big money shows.
Exactly. But more overall, I think you're starting to see a trend that maybe started a couple of years ago with both fans, team owners, with fans, team owners, and drivers. There is a migration now back to the 410 class
which surprises me, actually.
Really, it doesn't surprise me. Why does it surprise you?
Because of the cost.
Really?
I really thought, actually about 3 to 4 years ago, I really thought that 360s would be the way to go because of the cost factor, because of 410s just getting out of control. And but I've seen this even on the late model side. It doesn't matter. I mean, you can have a crate series. You can have a less expensive motor series. What happens in that series is eventually they take that series and that motor and they build that up to the same expense as a 410.
Yep.
So you're already there. So I'm seeing the flip-flop, and we're going back to that 410 deal because the 360s are getting just as expensive to run. I mean, that's what I'm seeing is 3-4 years ago, the cost wasn't there. You've been seeing that escalate and catch that 410 deal. So what's the point? Let's go 410 racing.
You hit on my point right there. I've talked to, and even this past weekend got the chance to talk to a couple, 2 or 3 engine builders. The amount of R&D and time and money that they are investing in the 360 motors is within shouting distance of what they spend on a 410.
Oh, I can see that.
And the 410, in talking to a Shane Stewart, who arguably you could make the case that, is one of the best 360 and 410 drivers in this country.
Yeah.
Because Donnie Schatz told me this many years ago. He goes, there's a lot of great 360 drivers that can't do worth a darn in a 410. And there's a lot of 410 drivers that can't do worth a darn in a 360. The way you drive them is completely different. So in talking with Shane, he goes, honestly, the 410s are more exciting and they're easier to drive because of the throttle response. He goes, with a 360, you are so momentum driven.
Right.
That you have to keep the motor wound up. With a 410, there's more give for the driver. There's more margin of error. You can make a mistake, and the thing has the power to pull itself back up and get going again, so you don't necessarily lose the entire lap. And the fans love it. I mean, traditionally, 410 is the standard.
Right.
It has been for a number of years now. The 360s were a great deal. They started out as a lower cost option, but now, like you said, we've pushed the cost of the 360 to within shouting distance of the 410. So you know what? Let's just go 410 racing. And to me, it also seems like that when we hear a new series being formed, is it a new 360 series or a new 410 series?
New 410.
People are wanting to see it. That's what these promoters are wanting to book. That's what the buzz is right now. So I think it's great for 410 racing. I've said this throughout the year. Every World of Outlaws race I've gone to, every time I've announced at Eldora and there's been sprint cars, every time I've announced at Knoxville and there's been sprint cars. And this is a huge, huge shout out to the fans listening. And thank you guys very much, because what I'm about to tell you, I sincerely mean. The crowds this year have been bigger than I have ever seen. And that's a testament to the folks willing to travel and spend the money. We appreciate that because we're a part of this industry too.
Oh, it's something that's debated on a lot here at the office and just talking about motorsports in general. And you can see where the crowds are. And what's really impressive is the crowds that have been maintained at the big 410 races, the World of Outlaw events. Even last week at the Sprintacular, sprint car racing in general has really done well to hold its fan base this year. And it's really impressive in the light of other motorsports that we're looking at. Not to bring light to bad things or things that are on a decline, but you turn on a TV on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday to watch the big show, and it's a little sparse.
It's a little sparse. And then I can tell you when I did pre-race ceremonies on Saturday night, having been at that UNOH Sprintacular the year before and then coming to it this year. Granted, this year the weather was a little warmer, but when I stood out there and looked across the main grandstands at Eldora on Saturday, I was pleasantly surprised at the sheer number of people that were there. It was better than 2013 or 2012. It was cold. Yeah. Oh, I remember that day. I remember that day. It was so cold. I had about 4 or 5 layers on. I was still shivering, but. What we're talking about here is 410 sprint car racing has been incredibly resilient throughout this economic downturn that started in 2008.
Right.
I really think we're starting to see a rebound. And with more 410 series, more tracks wanting to book 410 series, that's going to bode well for owners that say, hey, why am I going to run a 360 when I can go run a 410? There's more bigger paying money shows. Try this on, for example. The Arnold Motor Supply Knoxville 360 Nationals pays $10,000 to win.
Mm-hmm.
The 410 Nationals pays $150,000 to win.
Vast different, huh?
$140,000.
Yeah.
Now, granted, you have to race against Donnie Schatz for the $150,000, but even look at it this way. I know that 7th and 8th and into that top 10, you're still making $19,000, $15,000. So if you can place in the top 10 of the 410 Nationals, you're getting more than you are for winning the 360 Nationals.
Right.
That's why I'm thinking you're starting to see more of a push to 410s because that's where the money's at. And I'll tell you, I think it's honestly good for sprint car racing in general. If the engine costs are going to be pretty much the same, and the rest of the car is exactly the same for the most part. You can debate flat wing and dished wing all you want to.
Oh yeah.
You bolt it, you unbolt it, and you bolt the right one on. Whatever. Let's go 410 racing. That's where all the money's at if I'm a car owner today.
Oh, I would have to agree with you. I mean, and it's drastically different opinion than what I would have had 3 or 4 years ago when we were talking about this. Is there was such a it looked like 360 racing was a way for there to be more car owners and be affordable and I think even we've seen some of the 410 drivers. I mean, we've seen Donnie experimenting with different motor packages, even at Knoxville a couple years ago. And with that being said, I think everybody was leaning towards that. But again, in motorsports, speed costs money, and eventually that 360 motor, the speed and the money has caught the 410 deal.
And as we see these bigger purse shows and more prestigious shows and everything like that continue to build up. I mean, the Knoxville Nationals, those guys continue to pack that joint every Saturday night. The ticket prices continue to go up. The campground prices continue to go up because the demand is there.
Oh yeah.
Think about when we went to National Open last year, and I remember seeing the look on your face when we were there on Saturday night. It was probably after the heat races were over, and you and I were in the infield. We're just looking around at all the people.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That place was just crawling like I had never seen it before.
Well, and again, they had the same crowd type deal this year, and it's one of those hotbeds. I mean, and that's what I can see that's definitely happening with the series and the money and the promoters starting to step up at the plate here in the Midwest. You're going to have, not only Knoxville, you're going to have a couple of these other venues that are going to start to have a fan base that's pretty stout, just like Williams Grove and those Pennsylvania tracks.
Yep. And
you can see it, the writing's on the wall. It's there and it's coming, and it's a good thing for our motorsport and sprint car racing in general.
And I honestly think as we kind of push that way, this may step on some toes, but the more we go to 410 racing, and the less 360s there are out there, I think you see more 360 car owners make the leap to the 410.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys on the fence post out there, and there's some good drivers in the 360s, and you'd like to see them become 410s. I know Jason Johnson's experimented with it and was a 410 driver for Casey Kane for a while, and I know Brad Loyette got a great team out there. That's I think definitely the future for them is 410 racing too. So as that happens, you're going to have a lot of those teams come up and merging and competing with the teams that are there, and it's going to be better for the sport in general.
I would agree completely with what you just said right there. And we got on this topic. You're listening to Gas and Glory, by the way. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, as well as subscribe to us in iTunes. We're still getting the RSS feed up and going to where you guys can download this each and every week. And we do sincerely appreciate you folks listening. Neil and I have a fun time putting this show together. We hope that it's entertaining. We hope that you guys are getting something out of it as well, too. And we want to hear from you guys. If you have suggestions, or even if you just want to chat, check us out on those social media channels. Be more than happy to sit and bench race with you a bit. But we were talking about the Fall Brawl, which the Fall Brawl is a 2-day show up in Nebraska at I-80. And if you can sweep both nights like Wayne Johnson did this year, they give you an extra $50,000. So I think he took
pretty nice payday.
Yeah, he took like $60-some thousand out of there this year, and that was the 360 race. Next year it will be a 410. And speaking of brawls, this kind of segues into the next one. Is this type of fighting good for NASCAR, or does the unwarranted media attention, kind of that bad boy, renegade, outlaw image that the mainstream news portrays, is it good or bad for NASCAR?
Well, I think the mainstream news is they're not educated enough in motorsports to understand to be able to report as accurate what the situation is. I think in fact, it's interesting we're talking about this because I read something that came out of this weekend, and you got mainstream media jumping on the Tony Stewart bandwagon. This is a Tony Stewart situation, and this had nothing to do with Tony Stewart.
Totally missed it.
Yeah. But again, with what has happened in the past couple months with the tragedy up in New York with Tony and Kevin Ward, I think that this deal is right now a hotbed, and it's one of those situations that I don't think that necessarily NASCAR racing needs this this type of deal. And I'm going to tell you, in my opinion, I'm old school in many ways on the NASCAR deal, and looking at the stands and looking at the fans, I think folks are turned off in general to it. They're not spending the money to go and enjoy those type of races, because it's the same thing we talk about in sprint car racing. You want to go see a good race. People are there for the racing. NASCAR, really a little bit of that has been taken out of the play by all this chase race drama that nobody can keep up with. It's not the best team and driver for the year wins the championship. It's whoever got hot. Okay, well, it's like stick and ball sports. I mean, it's in the same situation as that. We're watching the Kansas City Royals. Maybe they weren't the best team this year, but they're hot now and they have a chance to win the World Series this year. Same thing's going for NASCAR's philosophy in this chase deal. Whoever's hot right now has the chance to do that. There are some drivers that ran good this year that are doing good in the chase. Kevin Harvick's one. I think Kevin Harvick got overshadowed big time by a post-race brawl incident this last weekend. Yeah. This guy, the last 2 weekends, has had epic runs that were pertaining a chance to win, had some bad luck. This week he pulls it off. he's had some very dominating runs, and he had a great win this weekend. Really, nobody's talking about Harvick winning the race.
I would agree with you as well. I don't think that this is what NASCAR really needs right now. I don't think they need a good fight story. Because, I mean, every once in a while, I mean, they still air the clip of Jeff Gordon shoving Jeff Burton at Texas. They still air the clip of Tony Stewart chucking a helmet at Matt Kenseth. His car, not him, his car. I mean, you go back to it, and for crying out loud, they're still playing the footage of Cale Yarborough versus the Allisons at Daytona in 1979.
Well, the world's a different place right now, and we know in the last couple of years NASCAR is dealing this. But we're in a situation right now, especially in sports, where we went through the situation with Tony and what happened at a local dirt track up in New York. Okay, now we've got the NFL situation over here where every day the media is trying to grab onto something where a football player has got into a scuffle at a bar, or, hey, they've had a domestic
violence issue.
Yeah, a violence issue. This is something that has nothing to do with racing, the sport of racing. How good these guys are putting on a show or racing or performing. Just like we're talking about, Kevin Harvick and Stuart Haas, watched it the last 2 or 3 weekends. They've really got a good car and been performing really well. This is Kevin Harvick's first year with Stuart Haas. I don't think that's being talked about as much as some of the drama that comes with it, and that's what we're pushing. And I think that stuff needs to go away. I think we need to go back to a situation where you race 36 races for the year, the best driver and team wins based on points. This chase stuff, I'm not a big fan and never have been of it.
Well, I think the thing to remember as well, too, NASCAR is trying to create that Game 7 moment, that winner-take-all type deal. They're trying to really match themselves up well with stick and ball sports. But
you're not going to be able to do that every year. They've had that, and they want to try to have that every year, and I don't think you can.
You have fundamental differences here.
Yes.
Because if you and I both are head coaches in the NFL,
right?
Okay, if Kyle's clobberers, okay, whatever we want to call this, whatever my team is, if I take on Neil's Renegades or whatever,
okay,
we are meeting. I mean, you can have home field advantage,
right?
But we're both meeting on the same surface. You've got 11 guys, I've got 11 guys.
Right.
For the most part, we're doing the same things to prepare.
Right.
The only real differences is the skills and conditioning of our players and the ingenuity of our coaches.
Right.
We don't have an equipment element here. We don't have, I mean, they play football on turf or grass. The field's the same size. The rules are the same. We're not going from a half mile to a 2.66 mile track.
Right.
You have too many variables that change in NASCAR that take some of the importance of that Game 7 moment out of it, because you can't compare it apples to apples. It's like playing basketball too. Do they play on a different surface besides the hardwood? No. I mean, that to me, trying to manufacture drama, you shouldn't do that.
Well, and that's what I'm saying.
Happen, they will happen. Now, what I would be in favor of, and I really thought this was going to happen earlier this year after the Michigan test, when they talked about taking downforce off of those cars, leaving the horsepower where it's at, but taking downforce off those cars to where they would go back closer to where they were racing in 2002, 2003. Now, I don't think we can get all the way back down into the mid-90s when it was really good, but I do think that if we'd have gone back to those early 2000 years, we would have done very well. Now, NASCAR did take away some downforce, not as much as what we were thinking, but they also took away some horsepower as well, too. Now, there's not very much difference in horsepower between a nationwide car and a cup car starting in 2015. I think that's the wrong way to go. You still have these cars that are too close to each other. Give them their horsepower back, take the downforce off the dang things, and let the drivers wheel the car. It's like racing a 360 versus a 410. The more throttle response you give the driver, the more room for error that he has, the more he can experiment with it, and the more he can attack the racetrack.
Well, in my opinion, this is how old school I am. My favorite track is a driver's track. It's not even the racing of the guys that are racing each other that really excites me about watching that race. It's the idea of watching a driver that can drive a car, they can actually race the track and be a driver in that sense. I mean, And that's what really the point you're bringing up is turning it over to the drivers and the guys having the chance to wheel these cars. And that's what I'm trying to say that needs to come back to the sport in general. We need to talk about the factors. Maybe it's not 11 players. It's the 6 guys over the wall or 7 guys over the wall, the team. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the guy, the crew chief that made the pit strategy to win the race, or let's talk about how Stuart Haas and Kevin Harvick and the teams meshed well this year and how well he's drove the car. But I agree with you 100%. Get these things up off the track instead of in the track. Let the driver drive them. Put some horsepower underneath them where they do have to manage it. Maybe not necessarily on these big tracks like Talladega, but drivers'
we're
tracks.
not advocating that. No.
And in my opinion too, NASCAR has got so far reaching in the idea of cookie cutter tracks. I mean, these things, they're everywhere. Kansas, Kentucky, they are a little bit different, granted, and there are some places that provide good racing. Chicago, they do have some differences to them, but I'm not against necessarily. We talk about it all the time. Track like Gateway over here, something similar to Darlington, different ends of the track. Driver track.
You're looking more at economics there, where they can sell suites and where they can sell tickets. I think that's why you don't see, and market size too. That's why
it can't get any worse than turning on the TV and seeing Charlotte over there with 25,000, 30,000 seats in turn 2, and it's holding up banners. There ain't no suites being sold or tickets being sold over there.
But it's a home race, and the teams don't have to pay that much for the travel. You don't have plane cost. You don't have hotel cost. The transporters aren't burning that much diesel to get there. Charlotte races are safe. Well, that's what's going to happen.
And I'm not saying move the Charlotte race or get rid of Charlotte Motor Speedway. I'm just saying we've got to get it back and get back the fans and getting people interested in NASCAR racing.
How do you do that?
How do you do that? I think that a lot.
You've got a minute. Go.
Okay. You want me to turn on the TV every Sunday and watch NASCAR racing and be interested? I'm old school. Go back to what made it fun for me. 36 races, champion at the end of the year. Let's talk about racing. Let's turn them loose. Give them more power. Take the downforce off the cars. I don't need to see a vacuum cleaner going around the track. Let's watch these things a little bit sideways. These guys hanging on and racing each other. You know what? If a guy goes out there, wins by a lap and a half, hey, he figured it out better than the next guy. Team figured it out. I want to see, I'm not looking for necessarily where it comes down to 0.10 second win every race or it comes down to 2 points at the end of the year. I want to see racing as a general, just like we're talking about. We're watching sprint car racing, and we watch these races all the time. We're talking about Donnie Schatz winning 25 races. Are we not tuned into that? Are we not turned? Have we lost interest and say, oh, Donnie Schatz is going to win every race, so we're not going to be interested in watching it? No, we're glued to it. We're glued to every race that's going on out there. And that being said, back in the heyday of NASCAR, Dale Earnhardt went out there and won 8, 10 races. Rusty, Bill Elliott. These guys were names and are legendary to NASCAR in racing. The guys now that come up, Kyle Larson, we talk about him, Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson has done amazing things. He is one of the best out there. I don't think he gets all the credit that he's deserved necessarily. But again, you got to look at this chase scenario that he's benefited. He's figured out, him and Chad figured out how to win the chase. That chase has always been an asterisk or a question mark to me, where it's one of those situations that I don't think it's a true champion at the end of the year type scenario. I feel that way even more so this year with the way it's set up. So it's my opinion for what it's worth, and not trying to say I'm turned off and not interested in NASCAR racing. It's always been there. NASCAR racing has been everything kind of funneled down from there, and for me, it's one of those things I'd like to see get fixed.
Well, we certainly don't have the wherewithal to cure all the ails in the world, but it was a good topic to get on because, the original question here on Gas and Glory was, is brawling good for NASCAR? And I think we pretty astutely answered that, NASCAR doesn't need fights. NASCAR needs a better racing product.
Yes.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We take a look at what's coming up this weekend, folks. The Outlaws head to Fremont Speedway for the last race of the season for that series in the Buckeye State of Ohio. That's what's coming up for the World of Outlaws STP Sprint Cars Series. As we take a look at a few other things going on, the 41st Annual Winter Nationals going on down at Devil's Bowl Speedway for the ASCS National Tour. Jeff Swindell swept the weekend last year. We'll see if he can make it 3 and 4 in a row. And NASCAR, as we mentioned earlier, is bound for Talladega, baby.
That'll be a good one.
Jamie McMurray won there last year. Very exciting. And last but certainly not least, one of the events we have begun to look forward to each and every year, quite possibly the best 360 race of the year, Trophy Cup at Thunderbolt Raceway in Tulare, California.
That's a good one, too.
Oh, man, if you've never been to Thunderbolt, oh, you've got to go. It is so awesome. You remember the finish there between Kyle Larson and Brad Sweet?
I don't know who doesn't.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah.
Kyle coming across, shredded right rear.
Looked like a Days
Brad's
of Thunder.
on the hook.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yep.
Absolutely amazing. So that's what's coming up this weekend, folks. And now it is time for a segment here on the show that we really have come to love and enjoy, folks. It is time for Did You See That? Each and every week, Neil, Quick, and I come up with something racing related that is awesome and amazing, and we're hoping that you were able to check it out for a Did You See That? And mine this week takes us back up to the Empire State of New York in Victory Lane for the third time. It was Stuart Friesen taking the checkers. And you know, Neil, when you get to Victory Lane, there's a lot of pictures. There's a lot of trophies, trophy girls, sponsors, family, and friends.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Stuart had something else in Victory Lane this weekend.
What?
He was sporting a quite awesome-looking mustache.
Really?
He had the stash going on. Put it up right now, folks. There it is. Stuart Friesen with the stash in Victory Lane at the Syracuse. I almost said the Syracuse. The Syracuse 200. Neil Quick, did you see that?
Yeah, that's pretty impressive there, Kyle. I think I got you one up, but I'm going to go the same direction. I mean, it's going to come from the Empire State up there at Syracuse.
Okay.
You know, as anybody goes as a race fan, I'm always looking for something different, and that sticks out of my mind as a cool-looking race car. And I mean, back in the old, I guess, early 80s, Gary Ballou had a big block modified. And I think everybody remembers it. It was called a Batmobile.
Okay.
And something I saw this past weekend and kind of brought that out and reminded me during the Silver Crown race up there at the Salt City 78 deal up at Syracuse. It was really interesting to see the Tobias guys. I know Dick Tobias brought the special Silver Crown car out, and Toby Tobias Jr. drove it. And pretty trick-looking Silver Crown car. Kind of reminded me of the idea back in the early 80s when the Modified came out for Ballou. And this thing looks like the Batmobile in a Silver Crown car. So, race fan, check this out. As a Silver Crown car, pretty cool, pretty unique. So be sure to check it out.
Yep.
Did you see that?
I did see that now. Very cool,
Did you get that up on the screen?
Yeah, we put it up on the screen.
Cool. Thanks, man.
We put that up, and that was Did You See That? And, you know, before we get on out of here, Mr. Shannon has been eerily silent today. The Cardinals going after the Giants now, series tied 1-1. Mr. Shannon, do we pick up a win in game number 3?
That's
he says yes. He says yes.
And that's starting in what? A half hour here?
It's coming up soon. It's coming up soon, folks. And also, say a prayer for me this weekend.
Okay.
Running my first half marathon Sunday morning and may not make the show next week.
Oh, boy.
It could be broken leg, could be exhaustion. Don't know what could happen, but it's going to be fun.
Hopefully it's not raining on you.
Ugh, I'm hoping for that and no cold. Well, it's time for us to get on out of here, folks, and we want to thank you guys so very much for tuning in to Gas and Glory. And remember, you can pick up our driver's gear over at www.r-rracewear.com, the web's largest store for dirt track racing apparel and merchandise. On behalf of everyone here at R&R Enterprises, he's Neil Quick, and I'm Kyle Luters.
You've been listening to Gas and Glory, presented by R&R Enterprises. All rights reserved. Please visit the web's largest sprint car store today at www.r-rracewear.com. The views and opinions expressed in the show are the host and guest alone and do not directly reflect those of R&R Enterprises.